Good morning and welcome to the second strategy in the book Fervent. And today we're talking about focus. This might be the most eye-opening one for me, but I wanted to go ahead and start with the opening couple sentences of the book. If I were your enemy, I'd disguise myself and manipulate your perspectives so that you'd focus on the wrong culprit. Your husband, your friend, your hurt, your finances, anything or anyone except me. Because when you zero in on the most convenient, obvious places to strike back against your problems, you get the impression you're fighting for something, even though all you're doing is just fighting for nothing. And we're covering again in this book the strategies of how the enemy attacks us. And when we craft our prayers and where we're praying, this book is showing us how to craft specific strategic prayers. If we're going to be attacked strategically from the enemy, we need to know exactly how he's going to attack, so we know exactly how to pray against that. And this is dealing with focus. Our focus is where we think the attack is coming from. That's probably said most easily. If it manifests itself in many different ways. You could be blaming your husband for something, and really it's the enemy underneath it all. If you stop and look, in Ephesians 6:12, it says, our struggle is not against flesh and blood, which is what you can see, but against rulers, against powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places, which we can't see. So she gives a really cool example of going to one of those like trunk or treats is what I was imagining. And you know how the game where the little hands pop up, there was a little boy, he was about to play this whack-a-mole game, and then he pulled the sheet, and then you see all the adults kind of with the little people about to pull them up. And so everybody got the lesson that day that what you see is not necessarily what's underneath. And that's what the enemy does. He puts situations, and it's slowly, it's not all of a sudden, it's slowly to just dull your focus, to make you focus and think that somebody else is causing the problem, but not him. And I thought I'd give you guys a real life example of a time that it happened to me. I had already read this book. It didn't occur to me that that's what was happening at the time until after a little while. But I'll just tell you the situation kind of at a high level. So my husband, if you guys know my husband, he's kind of the person that talks and may not think what he's saying. He just kind of talks. Anyway, everybody who knows him kind of knows he's like that. And I love him. You know, that's just the way he is, a little bit ADHD. And so he's talking to another guy from church, and I was friends with his wife, and me and his wife were actually really good friends. She was one of my first friends in the church, and I love her still to this day. Anyway, he was talking to the guy, and they're talking about losing weight, and he said a comment that I know he didn't mean badly, but he said something like, you know, when people lose weight, they lose weight everywhere. And then, you know, fill in the blank there. So that happened. I didn't realize it happened, but that husband went and told his wife. So his wife called me kind of out of the blue, not, you know, during the week sometime, and told me, you know, your husband was saying stuff about you. I think it's disrespectful to you. And it just, because I'm kind of scared about my husband saying stuff just because he doesn't necessarily think. Sometimes when he speaks, I didn't really want to ruin this friendship that I had at church. I was so sad. And I thought, oh no. It ended up turning into this big old thing. And so her husband told her, and then she was upset because she's actually was dealing with some hurts in her life, and this was causing her to focus, I think, on those. And the enemy knew kind of where to attack, because she'd been hurt before in a previous relationship with somebody close to her, having an infidelity issue with her husband. So not this husband, another one, but I know this is confusing. But the main idea was, we hung up, and I kind of was mad at my husband. I thought, I'm not going to talk to my friend anymore. Once I tell my husband what the husband did, the other husband, he's not going to want to talk to him anymore. So it was like a big old circle. And I started thinking about this, and I'm like, everything was fine. And then out of the blue, this happened, like completely out of the blue. And then I called her back, and I said, oh my goodness, this is focus. This is the focus. This is what's happening. The enemy is trying to create strife here. There's no strife. You're my friend. I know my husband. I know with the heart, with what he said it. He doesn't think before he speaks, but he's not malicious. So he wouldn't have meant anything by this. And I'm so happy that we got that resolved. I talked to my husband, and I mean, think about that. It would have been the perfect sort of storm. I would have felt uncomfortable to talk to her. My husband wouldn't have wanted to talk to the guy because the guy told her, and then she would have been mad at her husband. Like, it would have been a big old mess had it just festered and stayed. And it's exactly what the enemy does to try to get our focus off of him and on someone else. So pay attention to that. He's trying to distract you and trying to act like it's not him. It's something else. And that's what we need to fight against. It says here on page 43, the real enemy isn't your husband or your teenager or your brother's wife or your mother-in-law or the weather or traffic or your sweet tooth or whatever powder keg of frustration really gets under your skin and sets you off. None of those are the real struggle. We've got to understand that he's attacking us here. And when something is stirring up sort of out of the blue and creating a conflict, you can be sure he's underneath that. So read this chapter, and then there will be some verses that she puts in the chapter and some cards in the back of the book. Use those cards and use those verses to craft your very own prayer against focus. And when you see it throughout the day, it'll take you a little bit maybe at first to spot it, but after you get it, you're going to see it. You're going to know when he's underneath something, and you can pray against and cancel those plans, because there is no weapon formed against us that can be successful. Absolutely none. So I'm praying for you. I'm hoping you're enjoying this Bible study, and I will see you next week. Thank you. Bye.